Hi guys, Tom from Artist Smart here, and I'm here to debunk the top 3 myths that students have about the LAT. If you're not sure what the LAT is, it stands for the Law Admissions Test. It's a 2-hour exam which tests critical thinking skills, and if you want to study law at UNSW, you're going to have to get through it. So let's get right into it. Myth 1. You need to be awesome at English, legal studies or history in order to nail the LATs. People have this perception that you need to do certain subjects to succeed in the LAT because they teach you how to think critically or to write well. Often students think that legal studies is an absolute necessity for studying law. But the law that you do at uni and the LAT is absolutely nothing like legal studies. Let me tell you a bit about my story. In September last year, I had no idea what I wanted to do at uni. I was thinking about law, but I didn't do legal studies, I'd never done history, I was sitting in around 80–85% in advanced English. So I wasn't doing terribly by any means, but I certainly wasn't Band 6 material either. My writing was often criticised for not being sophisticated enough and for making weak arguments. I was thinking to myself, English really isn't my strong point, and the law is pretty much all English. Is this really the right thing for me? I did the LAT anyway because I wanted to keep my options open, and I ended up getting 100%. Now, full disclosure, I did do Latin and Greek extension in the HSC, and these subjects definitely helped me in the exam, but the same goes for any humanities subject, any language, any social science, economics, business studies, you name it. The important thing to take away is that there's no specific subject that you need to be doing in order to do well in the LAT. You just need to be able to think critically and express yourself clearly, and you've been learning how to do that for your entire life. Myth 2. You need to know about pathos, ethos and logos, and you need to know the names of all the logical fallacies in order to do well. There's actually a benefit to doing some research about what both fallacies and the modes of persuasion are, and I'd highly recommend that you Google them so that you can identify them and understand them more easily when you're analysing arguments in the LAT. But when it comes to the actual analysis, you're not going to be given extra marks for being able to name drop some random Latin phrase into your work. What you need to be able to do is to discuss how and why the technique is used and how it's effective. For example, consider the following scenario and 2 possible responses. In response to criticism from the liberal media regarding his tax plan, Donald Trump calls CNN fake news on the grounds that they are biased towards the left wing. Now, response from person A, who just looked up the word fallacy on the internet and is desperately trying to remember how to spell it, Trump's ad hominem attack on CNN is fallaciously used to delegitimize their criticism. Now consider response B from person who just spent their time doing practice papers instead. Trump's attack on CNN is invalid because it fails to address the argument put forth by CNN and instead attacks their reliability as a news source. Which answer do you prefer? Both of the above responses are functionally saying the exact same thing. The only difference is that one of them explicitly says ad hominem while the other doesn't. Both are completely fine in the LAT. What you will gain and lose marks for though, is analysing why people use rhetorical techniques and whether or not they're effective. So for example, in response to the previous scenario, saying something like the following. Trump's attempts to undermine trust in public institutions through his constant attacks upon the reliability of news media is not only a means of deflecting valid criticism, but of placing himself and his allies as the sole source of reputable information. Control of truth becomes another partisan battleground. In this response, I've gone beyond just identifying what rhetorical technique he's using it, to assessing why he actually uses it and why it's effective. This is what puts the word critical into critical analysis. Myth 3. In order to succeed, you need to write in a very fancy, sophisticated manner. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have to write in a technical and skillful way, but what I'm saying is the way that people define sophistication in high school, especially in English subjects, is not a reflection of what sophistication actually entails. You've probably seen one of those Band 6 English essays which got like a 21 out of 20 and it looks like it's been written by a human thesaurus. And you think to yourself, there's no way in hell I can match that. The thing is, you really don't need to. Consider the following scenario. You're composing a response to this statement. Only 50% of eligible citizens voted in the US presidential elections in 2016. Why is this a problem? If people aren't interested in politics, it's better that they don't vote, they leave it to us informed and engaged citizens to make decisions about the future of the United States. Now, two possible responses to this argument. One, by the person who uses the thesaurus like it's the Bible. Widespread public aversion towards civic engagement and the political sphere is debilitatory to the democratic process. Or response two, by the person who knows how to say things clearly. Political disengagement undermines the democratic process. Which of these sound better to you? The first might sound smarter, more sophisticated, more fancy to you, but in law, and in everywhere else in the real world to be honest, our aim is clarity, not verbosity. Saying things in an unnecessarily complex and confusing way won't help you, it'll just make your argument harder to read. Both of the sentences are making the exact same point, basically that it's bad for democracy when the public doesn't care about politics. But the second sentence gets the job done in less words and it's easier to understand. It's still using technical language, so it's not informal by any means. And so, for our purposes, the second sentence is probably better. You don't need a thesaurus to make a good argument. Explaining a concept simply and clearly takes skill and sophistication in itself, and the markers will reward you for that. So now we've run through what isn't important to the LAT. That obviously leaves a question. What is important? How are you going to get the highest marks that you possibly can and show your marker that you know your stuff? Well, stay tuned for more videos and subscribe, hit the notifications button, and we'll have more content coming your way next week on how to ace your LATs. See you in the next video.